Hello YouTube, this is Mahadev the Thunder Wizard. Welcome back to the channel. We are currently being hit with multiple solar storms. It's going to last at least through the weekend. And if you are like me, you are feeling it. You may be having a lot of ascension symptoms coming to the surface. It is my prediction that the solar flash energy is going to begin to increase exponentially, perhaps culminating in something very soon. I'm going to be talking to you about, again, the deep state alien invasion, which I believe may be coming very soon. The U.S. continues to make itself ready for war with China. But on the good side of things, we have spiritual awakenings increasing. People are waking up. Maybe not to some of the crazy stuff I'm talking about, but they're just waking up to the craziness of the world that we live in. And so my question to you is, will 2023 be the last year of the third dimension? Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is Mahadev the Thunder Wizard. And so we've been having solar storms for the past 2 or 3 days. For me right now it is Saturday, August 5th. If you're watching this live, very likely it is the night of Friday, August the 4th, if you're watching this live. But we've already been getting some solar storms, again, over the past 2 or 3 days, which I have been feeling and experiencing. And interestingly enough, I have been making contact with higher dimensional beings, and I've been noticing some military air vehicles, in one instance, go directly over my house. Now, it wasn't low flying, but when I went outside and looked, I saw it was, a military helicopter, and it was going straight along the line directly underneath my house. Coincidence? Maybe, maybe not. But it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. And the reason is what I talked about last time is that when we have solar storms and we have a decreased electromagnetic field around the Earth, that is when higher dimensional beings, extraterrestrial beings, have a better opportunity to manifest and interact and create contact with other humans. So we've got people all over the world. You know, usually once a week, Dr. Greer's people, CE5, follow, not his people, but people who follow CE5 usually know to go and do human-initiated contact with extraterrestrials. And so that is potentially, if the military powers that be have the ability to monitor what's going on, then they're going to want to be in the skies to try and, who knows, prevent that from happening. So I want to talk to you about the solar storms that are coming. The feeling that I'm getting is that we are heading into much bigger everything. For me, things were quiet. I want to say they were quiet for probably 3 weeks. I had very little, if any, higher dimensional messages. Of course, in my interdimensional meditations, I was going into other places, connecting with deities and energies, but they're not as wrapped up in all of the drama. Whereas the extraterrestrials and us humans, we get very involved in the drama that's going on. And so, and I asked, I kept asking why are things so quiet? And the message I kept getting was, things are about to get very intense and we're just giving you a break. Trust me, you're going to have plenty of stuff to do and plenty of experiences, but for right now, just relax. Now that was up until a few days ago. One of the last messages I got, there was one brief period, the past 2 or 3 weeks when things were silent, when one day I got some downloads, some strong energy, and messages. That's how I know it's an ET, because there will be very strong energy associated with the message. And the message was that big stuff is coming. So just be prepared. Don't get scared, but be prepared that everything's going to come to the surface. So I think that is what is happening now. We're bumping into that. And as it so happens, this is the best time, because solar storms are this solar wave that has been talked about, the solar flash that you've been hearing about for who knows how many years. It is actually the method through which this solar wave event comes is through solar storms. So when the sun has these coronal mass ejections and these solar flares and these plasma storms that hit Earth so hard that everybody can feel it, so hard that it messes with electronics, so intense that you can see auroras in the sky in latitudes you normally would never see. That is actually the solar flash event in progress. And each time one of these storms hits, it's a wave of energy. And at the moment, you may not notice anything, except maybe you might feel some intense energy. Some people might have intense spiritual experiences, but probably for the average person, they might just feel some anxiety, or they might be touchy or emotional, or maybe they can't sleep so good, or they might have some kind of who knows, event and wonder, what the heck is wrong with me, what is going on? And then what will happen is that energy will then begin to permeate, and it will change, it will create shifts and changes. And what you will see every time that there's a solar storm that hits, there's a lag time of who knows how long. It could be days or weeks or even months, but you're going to see a lag time, and then you're going to see an overall shift in everybody's awareness. And this is why we're seeing all this stuff about, all these revelations about, worldwide child pornography ring and their connections to elite Hollywood. This is why we're seeing all the stuff happening with Biden and his family. We now know it's a fact. Everybody knows. Mainstream news is even talking about the fact that the Bidens have been coercing the Ukrainians to give them $10 million so that they can keep this war going. By the way, in case you didn't know, I just found this out a little while ago, but there were 2 treaties on the table before this war started between Ukraine and Russia, and they had both, Russia and Ukraine had both signed the treaties, and it was nuked both times by the United States. So make no mistake, this war is not how it's being presented. And of course, again, mainstream news is proudly talking about, we're going to go to war with China in the next couple of years, and we're ready to take them on. And China is being aggressive, balloons in the sky, that's been going on for years, weather balloons. When you look at what's going on, the United States is doing military exercises and provoking Chinese military, and they're just doing little tiny things, just like, hey, back off. And we're taking that as a sign of aggression, and we need to go to war because they get pissed off because we're flying over their airspace or something like that. So World War III could be coming. But here's the thing that's really got my attention. I guess before I get into that, let's talk more about the feelings that I'm having. Now, I'm way on the fringe of all this stuff, obviously. I mean, I'm open that I say I have regular communication with higher dimensional extraterrestrial beings. I'm so far off the deep end, it's not even funny. I mean, I wouldn't take me seriously. If this was 2 years ago, I wouldn't take anything I was saying seriously in the slightest. So I'm well aware how extreme my views are. But even with the extreme beliefs that I have, and combined with my experience, the feelings that I'm just having today are like a shocked awareness of, oh my God, this planet we're living on is basically just a giant laboratory not for aliens, not for the draconians, not for the reptilians. I don't buy into that. But for extremely rich, powerful people who have been using our planet as their own personal laboratory on levels I can't even talk about. And just the feeling I'm focusing on is how aware I am of all of this. How deeply mainstream media has been completely taken over by special interests. How, our educational system, how our financial system, how the whole thing has been completely designed to keep us in this little bubble. The biggest one that really blows my mind is, if you haven't watched any of Dr. Greer's recent films, please go watch them. Especially the ones that reveal the level of technology that humans have had for over 100 years. For instance, we could have, do you remember the Jetsons cartoons in the 60s? There's a reason why that was a cartoon. I was born in the 60s. So I remember being 5 years old, 6, 7 years old, and I remember being told that within the next decade, we're going to have flying cars, all the stuff you see on the Jetsons. We already had anti-grav technology. Now, of course, I didn't know that as a kid, but we as a society knew that's where we were headed very quickly. And as time has gone on, there have been times throughout, the decades of my life that I've reflected back on and going, how come we're still driving around in these gasoline-powered cars? And why haven't we evolved anywhere near, to the level that we thought we were going to? And when you look at the level of technological advancement, there has been a lot of advancement around things that can be used to monitor you. The internet is one, cell phones is another one. If you don't think every single one of your phone calls isn't being monitored, at the very least recorded, I feel sorry for you. I was on the phone with somebody who was, just last year, and we were talking about ETs and UFOs, and I was starting to tell them, the false flag, fake alien invasion, and the phone just went dead. I mean, as soon as I started talking about it, the phone just went completely dead. If you think that's just a little too coincidental, I think it's also too coincidental. So when we think about the fact that humans have the technology that goes far beyond anything that we already know, in anything we can imagine in terms of science fiction, far beyond anything we can imagine in terms of science fiction. And when you think that that's been going on, we've had anti-grav technology since the 1950s. 80 years ago. 70 years ago? Yeah. 70 years ago. When you think about that, and you think about, if there are people who have this technology and they are choosing to keep it from us, and they're continuing to pump out, the engines that we have, the cars that we have, which run on fuels that they make money from. And when you think about, there's really no need for the banking system anymore. The technology is there for everybody to power their own homes, power their own vehicles, be able to completely be self-sufficient without having to be dependent on any energy source outside of your own home. When you think that there are people who are driving that just so that they can keep this whole money thing going so that you will be controlled, you start to realize the level of this crazy world we're living in. And it really is, people who feel like they're in a prison planet, you're correct. It's not a spiritual prison planet, because there's nothing beyond the human realm that has any interest in causing us any harm whatsoever. It's just a lot of really selfish, controlling, rich people who know how to manipulate frightened humans. It's just that simple. So I told you not too long ago, probably a week or so ago, I told you that the narrative with the congressional UFOs, here's the narrative as it was presented. First, we had David Grush appear. Magically out of nowhere, he came onto One Nation News, or I guess that's what it's called. And that one news station wants to present itself as like an alternative to Fox. But in reality, everything that goes on that ends up getting plastered over all of the mainstream news, which means they're all connected, of course. And so David Grush shows up 2 days before, 48 hours before Dr. Stephen Greer has his press club event, in which he has something like 10 whistleblowers, and he has access to almost 1,000 whistleblowers in the government, in the technology sector, in the military sector. And what they want is to bring disclosure, not that UFOs exist and that aliens exist. That's a given. The disclosure that they want to have Congress give to the world is that there are unacknowledged military programs that have these UFO programs that humans already have. Flying saucers, anti-grav technology, everything else that we attribute to aliens. That's what was supposed to happen. Now, I said when David Grush came on and he started talking about not that there's an unacknowledged human-created UFO UAP program, but he says that the government has a secret UFO retrieval program. Now, even well-meaning ufologists and people who believe that there needs to be some kind of revelation about this, disclosure about this, even those people were caught by the manipulation of it and start saying, "Yay, disclosure is coming." And I would have to say, no, it's not. Disclosure isn't that there's a secret crashed alien ship retrieval program. That's meaningless. The disclosure is that there is a secret human UFO program that has been used for human abduction, for drug trafficking, for human trafficking, and for experimentation, medical experimentation on humans. And they have presented themselves very convincingly as aliens. And so I pointed out these two narratives. One is a secret retrieval program, and one is a secret UFO program, human-made. And what I told you, my prediction was what David Grush was going to say next was, first he was going to start saying that aliens were dangerous. Sure enough, next week, that same One Nation News says, and we have some deeper revelations from David Grush that aliens have killed humans. Right on cue. Then I said, what they're going to start saying next is, as they're presenting it as though, he's putting himself at risk, Mr. Grush, and saying that he has to reveal all this because we need to know. And the point he's trying to make is that we're in danger. We're in danger of these alien creatures. They found alien creatures. They exist. They found the alien bodies. They exist. And they have this technology we don't have. That's what you're hearing in at least the mainstream presentation is the pilots are saying, we don't have this technology. This has to be alien. And it's a threat to our airspace. But it's being presented as though we have to force the Pentagon to reveal the truth. And so people buy into that. And for some reason, out of nowhere, the mainstream news now all of a sudden wants to have government disclosure, which they haven't wanted all throughout the past 3 years. But for some reason in this area, They want the government to come clean, and it sounds good. And when you understand how to manipulate people psychologically, even well-meaning people think, good, we're on the cusp of real disclosure. Yeah, go after them. We need to have these hearings. And I said, that's not what's going to happen. What I told you was going to happen is that these hearings are then going to be portrayed as that the government, the military, had to keep this secret so that there wouldn't be widespread panic. But now that you know, now that the cat is out of the bag, yes, there are actual aliens. Here's the proof. We have their bodies. And here is some of their technology. And yes, we've been reverse engineering it, but only because we know that they're coming to invade us and we need to protect the earth. And guess what just showed up on mainstream news? Same thing. Now David Grush is saying, according to One Nation News, I think it's what it's called. According to David Grush, he's saying that exact thing. That the reason it's been kept quiet is, number one, because it was Cold War and we didn't want the Russians to find out this technology existed. And number two, they didn't want to frighten people. So what's going to come next? If they're allowed to pull it off, what's going to come next is they're going to say what I just said is, yes, we have reverse engineered, but now we can fight back against the aliens and we need to come together as one planet and fight the evil aliens. And then the conquest of the entire world under one corporate military structure will be complete. And then Jeff Bezos will have his dream of 1 trillion people. I'm quoting him. He wants 1 trillion people in space, even though there isn't 1 trillion people on Earth. And so if there's 1 trillion people in space, where's the rest of the humans? Well, they're not on Earth. So what does that mean? If he owns the space station where you're going to live, guess what? You're going to have to work for him. And what he wants to put up, because he wants to save the earth from pollution, is he wants to put factories. I kid you not. I'm not making this up. You don't believe me? Go to Jeff Bezos' YouTube channel and watch the videos. He's very clear about this. He says he wants to save the earth from pollution. So instead, we should move all the pollution out into space. I shit you not. He also says we need raw materials. We need, all the different kinds of rare earth minerals and things that we're currently now digging out of the ground on Earth, which is bad. We need to keep our Earth safe. So what we need to do is we need to go to space and mine other planets. I shit you not. So he wants to go to the moon, he wants to go to Mars, he wants to go to other planets and mine the planets for raw materials that he can then turn into energy, which then of course you will buy from him. He even goes on to say, you need these things because you need your computer, you need your phone, you need the internet, you need energy. Well, we can't get it from the earth, we got to get it from space. And, well, if there are these evil aliens out there and they're going to try and get in the way from us going to our own planetary systems, we need to go to war with these evil psychopathic aliens for some reason, like this guy, are always walking around naked, even though they have the ability to fly through wormholes. For some reason, they just walk around naked and they climb on your roof and try and steal your tractor. So that's what's coming. This deep state fake alien invasion, I believe, could be coming very soon. So, they've already tested it out. There's been some alien landings in people's backyards. There's been, I think, 3. One in Las Vegas. How convenient, right next door to Area 51. There's been another one in New York. Some guy got a videotape of some naked, gray alien hiding in the bushes for some reason. And then there's been a couple more. So they're testing out to see how you react. And unfortunately for them, nobody gives a crap. Nobody cares. Nobody's talking. Nobody go out in the street and see if anybody's talking about aliens invading. Nobody gives a crap. So if they have their way, they're going to frighten you into that for all the reasons that I just said. Spiritual awakenings are increasing. So let's talk a little bit about some of the feelings that we might be having. I don't know about you, but here's how it works on me. And I think I'm like a lot of people. Maybe if somebody's really spiritual, they just feel this bliss going through them and, all that. But what happens to me is I start to get anxious for no reason. And I'll find myself feeling anxious and cranky and judgmental. I'll be self-devaluing, self-doubting, very touchy about anything. I blow things out of proportion. It's a good thing I live alone, because otherwise I might be driving somebody else crazy. And I'm aware of that. So I know when a solar storm is coming, so I'm aware when I start feeling it, I go, oh, that's what that's about. And the way to counteract this, if you have this, because if you don't, you'll create tension with yourself. You can give yourself a headache. You can give yourself, intestinal issues. You might end up with physical pains. And that's a result of you fighting the energy. We've talked about this before. This higher vibrational solar wave energy, when it hits you, what it wants to do is get you in a place where you are on a higher vibration. But we humans are addicted to this particular frequency that we perceive as 3D planet Earth. So when something wants to shift us up above that, instead of what you would think would happen, which is, oh my God, I feel all this spiritual bliss and I'm floating up to a new frequency, that's not what happens. What ends up happening is we feel like we're going to die. If you don't have the conscious feeling of I'm going to disappear any moment, then you find yourself looking for the problems, and you're upset at this and you're cranky about that, or you're depressed, or and what's happening is that your body, your psyche is resisting the shift because it knows that your 3D identity must die in order to go up to a higher level. Spiritual seekers have known this all their life, and they seek it out. They go into the mountains. They just live, in the jungle with underwear and a begging bowl, and they meditate all day because they want to die to their 3D attachment so that they can evolve. Really advanced spiritual practices, like the spiritual practice I teach here, the Maoshan practice I teach here at thunderwizard.com. The Maoshan guys would go out of their way. They would actually seek to die. And what they would do is that they would use the energy techniques and get their bodies so filled with this energy that then they would go into a state of, I forget what that's called, hibernation, and they would die. They would bury them. The other monks would go, oh, he's getting ready to shift. They would put him in a coffin, bury him, underground, and keep him there for 40 days, I think it was. Halfway through, they'd dig him up and look and see, yep, his body, all of the skin and muscle was gone, and the only thing was left was a beating heart. And they go, okay, he's getting close. Close it up, cover it over. They come back after the full 40 days and look in, and there'd be nobody there. And here he is walking through the wall. Those kinds of stories, they even made those stories about Jesus, even though I don't think Jesus ever existed. But people knew that this could happen, that people could achieve what we would consider enlightenment in the old days. Now we realize all that's happened is that the frequency of their cells in their body has shifted up to the next octave, and they're able to, just like Sasquatch, come in and out of our third dimension. And that's all we're talking about. This is coming for the whole earth. So this energy that's hitting the earth is seeking to do that to every living being on the planet. But if your psyche believes that you have to stay in this three-dimensional reality in order to exist, then you will fight that. And when you fight that, you have these ascension symptoms. You get cranky, You get angry, you get judgmental, you get fearful, you get uncomfortable in whatever way. That's just simply your psyche trying to hold on to the third dimension. Lower vibrational emotions: anger, fear, resentment, self-pity, doing things, drinking, doing drugs, smoking, coffee. All of that stuff keeps you in the third dimension, by the way. It's one of the reasons I tell you to stop doing it. It's not a moral thing. Drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes, smoking weed, drinking, doing any kinds of drugs, all that stuff keeps you in a lower vibrational state. Indulging in self-pity, indulging in anger, in victim mentality, trying to push your feelings down. All of this lowers your vibrations, as well as all the other horrible things it does for you. So, what I've been feeling just today, is, I was watching something on, the Disney Channel or something like that, one of the new movies. And they were playing a song from the 70s that I remember in high school, listening to. And I got very nostalgic and very sad. And I'm like, why am I so sad listening to this song? It's not just because I'm getting older. It's. And I realized, I became aware that it's all going away. All of it. When you become aware of the level of control and just the level of the lies that the entire human race has been lied to, that there's a secret war going on between humans, trying to fight off extraterrestrials. All the other stuff that happened the past 3 years. All the stuff that's going on, behind our backs, the lies that have been perpetrated to us by people that are supposed to be taking care of us and teaching us and helping us. The people that we trust to protect us and to give us a good life. They've been lying to us. They've been experimenting on us. They've been treating us like animals in a zoo. When you realize that, you realize the whole thing has to come down. That includes all of the structures. So the financial structure has to go down because, again, money doesn't exist. It's just an idea. It's just a way to control you. The housing crisis, the economic crisis, all these things are created so that you can be more easily controlled. The end result of the housing crisis, let's just talk about that for a second. Again, who comes up with the idea of how much a house should cost? Who comes up? Do you know the person who decides that? Well, they'll say, the market decides that. And the idea is that, a fair exchange and, the demand will create increase or decrease, right? Well, what if you got somebody who's got a handle on the little knob that decides, what the economy is? Well, the way to do that would be if you were a giant corporate, tentacled octopus controlling the worldwide economy, and you wanted a way to keep people from having their own homes so that you could take them and put them in space, for example, and have them work in your space factory. One of the ways to do that is the rich people create corporations that buy up real estate all around the world. Because this housing crisis, normally these things happen in little places. Oh, on this part of the country, there's a housing crisis. Oh, in this country over here. But, I was in the United States and I started hearing about this housing crisis, meaning that corporate real estate corporations were buying up all of the homes and then raising the prices so that they were intolerable. And so the only way people could live in them is if they rented them. And this was going on, and there was all these things in the news about the housing crisis and people losing their jobs and having to leave their houses, right? It's a completely fabricated crisis. But again, the end result is that you need to find a job and you need to find a place to live. So now you're just this jobless laborer. And then you're willing to take whatever job comes your way. You're willing to find whatever housing. And that's how communism worked. That's how it worked in communist Russia. That's how it worked in Cambodia, for example. Remember the Khmer Rouge? That's how it happens. They decide where you live. You know, the Khmer Rouge got rid of money so that you couldn't get a job, so that you couldn't own anything. So when I talk about getting rid of money, I'm not talking about the Khmer Rouge style communism. I hope you don't think that. I believe that everything should be free. Everything should be available, not controlled by some government. I think governments need to go away. But this whole housing crisis is designed to turn you into a helpless human who can't feed themselves, who can't clothe themselves, who can't house themselves, who, you know, you can't even decide for yourself what medicines to put in your body, what not. And then when you're at that state, then you get to be controlled. And they can decide where to put you and what to have you do. And you're nothing but a laborer. You're a human. You know, again, communism wants to get rid of your individuality so that you're just a cog in a wheel. And the end result is Jeff Bezos doesn't want to give up his money. When the World Economic Forum tells you that you won't own anything, they didn't say that nobody would own anything. They just said you won't own anything. Because they say you won't own your own home, but you'll rent. Well, who are you going to rent it from? You're going to rent it from somebody who's making money off of you. So you don't get to make any money. You don't get to own anything. But you're going to rent it from somebody else. That's what all this stuff is about. This is what I'm talking about. And that is just on the surface that the average person can look at. What the average person doesn't know is that there are unacknowledged programs that have access to technologies where you can use your mind to heal yourself of cancer, of a broken limb. I mean, they have unbelievable medical advancements that you're not aware of because there's no money in it. If you knew how that you could meditate and heal yourself, there's no money in it for them. That's why I talked about the other day, there are hospitals that are literally, I can't even believe it, that are taking, you know, elderly people who can't function, who are on death's door, and because they don't have the money to pay the hospital bill, they're being wheeled out, you know, in their hospital gown and put on the sidewalk on the other side of the street in freezing cold weather. That's happening all the time. It's about money. It's never been about you. It's never been about your health. It's never been about what it pretends to be. And when you look at the whole thing, I mean, we all know that. The medical system, the hospital system, the prison system, the big pharma, banks, the housing crisis, governments, organizations that are supposed to only regulate are owned by the very corporations and businesses they're supposed to regulate. I mean, you have to be in such deep denial to not see what's going on. I was in the dark for a long time, but I wanted to know the truth. It wasn't that I was, you know, really attached to what I believed. So as soon as I saw a crack in that armor and I started looking down that path, I saw, you know, now I know. So this is what's coming. They are losing. They know that the solar flash is a real thing. They know that the solar wave event is a real thing. How do I know that they know that? Because remember, for the past 3 years, they tried to keep you inside. I was here in Australia. Luckily, I was here in Queensland, so it wasn't a big deal. But in other parts of Australia, like Sydney, and in, I forget the one at the bottom of the country. I forget because my brain goes so fast I can't remember names. Melbourne. It was the worst in the world. And people were getting arrested for just going out to, you know, put their trash out on the street corner. They wanted to keep you inside. They wanted to keep you out of the sunlight. There are things going on now in the UK where people are being prepared for global warming lockdowns. They're being told that they can't drive their car They can't leave their house because it's bad for the environment. It's just, it's getting so crazy. They want to keep you indoors out of the sunlight. Governments, Bill Gates, many others, the World Economic Forum, want to put sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere to block out the sun to battle global warming. Well, they don't want to stop you buying petroleum from the extremely, the trillions of dollars that you spend every year on petroleum. They don't want you to do that. They don't want you to stop buying natural gas. They don't want to give you the technology that you can use to heat your own home, cool your own home, and power your vehicle without creating any pollution whatsoever. They want to keep polluting the atmosphere. They just want you to pay for it. And so, but they're going to block out the sun. And why would they want to block out the sun? Because they know this is happening. They know that if you connect to higher dimensional beings, they know you will wake up. They know you will realize that you're trapped in this illusion, that you are being hypnotized into this money thing and into this, And today, as I said, I got very melancholy as I heard this song from the 70s, and I'm like, why am I so melancholy? And I realized because it's all going away. The whole idea of fame is going to go away. There aren't going to be celebrities anymore. The whole idea of, the music business, the entertainment business, in terms of like Hollywood, we worship what is thrust upon us. I mean, I could name some. Well, for instance, I was an actor, and this was 30 years ago. I was an actor in Hollywood. I did do some movies and some TV, and I auditioned for some of the big movies. If I could throw out some names that I auditioned for. And I never got cast, as you can tell, in any of that stuff. And it was strange to me, and it was strange to the casting people who are like, you're the best guy for this part. Why aren't you, people would ask me questions like, how come we haven't seen more of you? I'm like, I don't know. Well, I know now. I was talking with somebody way back then, and they said, because, Mike, you're not somebody they can use to advertise. They said the movie business is not about art, it's about advertisement. Television is about advertisement. You're too real, you're too raw. That's not good for advertisement. People wake up if you do real art and you wake them up. They wake up and they stop throwing their money away and, running the rat race. They said, that's not good for business. Of course they're not hiring you. And I'm looking back on those words now, and I'm like, oh, when I see there are so many, think of, I forget the guy's name again. My brain goes too fast, I can't think. But if you're watching what's happening, you're seeing a lot of these very famous people getting out of nowhere, either dropping dead for no reason, or they're getting these lifetime illnesses, like these illnesses you don't get until you're in your 90s. And there are people in their 30s and 40s who are getting these horrific illnesses that are they have to retire from acting because, they can't walk anymore. They can't remember. They can't think straight. And this is happening all over. I have just the past couple of weeks, my martial arts teacher dropped dead. Just walking around his house and dead, gone. You come to your own conclusion about why that happened. By the way, everybody should be, if you haven't already, everybody should be taking natural supplements to get rid of the spike protein. If you've had COVID, spike protein is the big problem there. And as you know, it tells your body to create spike protein. These things create inflammation. So I recommend everybody go online and find out natural ways to reduce spike protein for your own health. Anyway, all of this is coming to a head, and I think I'm happy to be wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll be the first to admit it. But so far I haven't been wrong. I told you exactly what the narrative was going to be for these congressional UFO hearings. And so far, David Grush is following exactly what I said he was going to, because anybody with a brain knows what's coming. The government's going to say, we have to protect ourselves from the aliens who are going to invade us. And look, we have flying saucers we didn't tell you about. Let's go to war. That's what's coming. All right. So what else did I want to talk about? So the sadness that was hitting me was my attachment to the third dimension. You know, I have fond memories of things I grew up with. You know, songs I grew up with. You know, all kinds of things I grew up with. I have fond memories about some of them. And I'm realizing now that's all going away. Maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like it's all going to get the whole... When you realize the level of dystopian, you know, control that is going on, and that, you know, we're headed towards self-annihilation. When you realize that, then if you are aware that we live in a spiritual universe, a spiritual multiverse, when you become aware that everything outside of Earth is about as close as you can get to hell as I can imagine. You know, it's not, you know, hell isn't where you go and you're being tormented and tortured and screaming, although that's going on in a lot of places. Hell is when you're in a state of dysfunction, of ill health, you're out of balance, you're unhappy, but it's just barely tolerable. And that's what this society is. This society that we live in is barely tolerable. And, you know, like putting a frog into a boiling pot, you turn up the heat very slowly until the frog allows themselves to be boiled to death. And every time you get upset about something, remember when the beginning of the pandemic, we were just going to take 2 weeks. Remember that? We're just going to go into lockdown for 2 weeks, because that's all the population was willing to accept. 2 weeks? All right, I can do 2 weeks. That 2 weeks turned into 2.5 years. And it's because the more that you're willing to tolerate, the more they can bring on the hell. And before you know it, you are dead. You're dead-eyed. You're dead-eyed and you're completely dependent and you're miserable. But you're not miserable that you want to off yourself just yet. You're almost there, but you just, you know... And, you know, the way narcissists work is that they give you a little bit. They torture you, and then they give you a little bit of reprieve. They give you a candy. They give you a cigarette. They give you a cup of coffee. You know, they do this in interrogations. They'll torture you, and then they'll stop, and then the good evil doctor comes in with a coffee and a candy bar and a cigarette and then says, you know, I'm sorry you have to go through that. Can you just, you know, throw your soul away a little bit? You know, just give me a little something. And then you throw your soul away a little bit more. They say, thank you. The other guy comes in and tortures you some more. This is the world we're living in. We've just learned to tolerate. You know, it's amazing to me what people have been willing to do. You know, watching what's gone on these past 3 years. I made a decision, as you know, if you go back 3 years, you'll know that people would ask me, what is my thought on a certain medical procedure? And I would say, I'm not going to make any comment until I know. And I don't know. And I didn't. And it wasn't that I had it. I wanted it to be real. I wanted it to be a healthy thing. And I was prepared to believe that. But I kept my eyes open. I asked people that I knew. And I came to find out it wasn't such a great idea. People were dying. And then I did some research, actual research, and found out what was really going on. If you do that with any of these things, this whole thing is ready to come down. If you look at what's going on in government, If you just just ask questions, just, when a politician says something and you just ask any common sense question, the argument falls apart. When you're being told, when you look at what's happening with what happened the past 3 years, I mean, they're not even trying to hide that anymore. We're finding all of the stuff we were told is wrong, and they're open about it now. They don't care. The damage has been done. When you ask about the housing crisis, when you ask about the economy, when you ask about the war in Ukraine, when you ask about the upcoming war with China, when you just ask a couple of questions and you look at it, the thing just falls apart. The whole thing's got to come down. Whole thing. And so I'm feeling some sadness. But the good news is what's coming beyond that, we have to get rid of the whole thing. The whole thing has to come down. We have to start from a different base, a different assumption. The assumption is that you're valuable. You are a spiritual being and you live in a vibrant spiritual multiverse. You don't live in a tiny little fishbowl, which is what you thought. But our 3D eyes and ears tell us we live in a tiny fishbowl. But now we're understanding that no, what's coming is, when people who've gone into the future, in meditation, hypnosis, things like that, they say things like, things are so different in the future. And when you ask what, they'll say, I can't even explain it. Or they'll say, I'm not allowed to talk about it. You wouldn't understand. We're just going to have to see it. It's going to be so much different than what we can comprehend. Our grandkids and perhaps our children will ask us about, what was it like before the shift? What was it like? And we try and tell them, they go, oh my God, how did you live through that? They won't even understand what it's like to be devalued, to be treated like a number, to be treated like an animal. To be kicked out of a hospital when you're old and dying because you don't have money to pay the bill. What was money again? Dad, explain to me what money was. I don't understand. Well, it was this thing that we used to gauge people's value. If you had more of it, well, what was it? Well, sometimes it was pieces of paper. Pieces of paper? Well, other times it was pieces of metal. Pieces of metal? How did that bring value? I don't know. We just accepted it. It was a crazy time. Anyway, so let's see. What else did I want to talk about? So yeah, we might be coming to the end. So my prediction, I'm not psychically predicting. I'm not channeling. I'm just going off of my common sense. So far, my common sense has been right, even though the conclusions I've come to have been absolutely unbelievable even to me. But my common sense tells me that what is coming is that the insanity is going to increase, might get worse before it gets better, might not though. It all depends on us. If enough people wake up and decide not to participate, we decide not to participate in this farce anymore, then, the powers that be won't have anything to leverage against you. Because the only thing they can leverage against you is the fear that you won't get your needs met. And I want you to think about that. How did they get people to... They threatened to take away your job and your freedom of movement. You remember? I remember here that in Sydney, if you didn't get, you couldn't go to the park with your kids. That was like a law. You had to have to go to the park with your kids. You couldn't leave your home. Can't get on a bus, can't get on a plane. So the only way that they can keep you in the system is if you are willing to operate from your fears that you're not going to be given the value, which is money, having access to money, having access to a job, and they're going to try and tell you that they're going to take away your freedom to move around. They already did it once, they're going to do it again. And as long as you don't operate from that fear, as long as you don't let fear tell you, if you go outside you'll die, which is ridiculous. I mean, the worst thing you can do for that scenario that we were in was to keep people indoors. all in having to breathe air conditioned air or heated air instead of outside with fresh air. You're not allowed to do that. There were people out there skin diving and scuba diving with masks on. And you remember that? People would put on scuba gear and then put a mask on. It was just crazy. So you've got to be willing to not be afraid anymore. And you've got to be willing not to buy into any of the control measures. And if you can do that, they won't have anything. But if you do buy into it, then they have the resources to make you miserable. So I'll be interested to see what continues to happen with the solar storms. My belief, I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know exactly how it's going to play out. I know how the solar waves are working. I know how the solar energy and the solar storms and what they're doing, that they're shifting our DNA and waking us up and all the stuff I talked about in the beginning of the video. I understand that. What I'm not clear on is what the final event is going to be. It's going to be something that everybody will see, and it will be something in the sky, something having to do with the sky. Maybe it'll be, Aurora Borealis around the whole world. I don't know. Maybe who knows? And I know that everyone will be given a choice, that you will have to choose. But bear in mind, it's going to be difficult to choose for the good if you're addicted to the frequency of this three-dimensional Earth. And so I strongly recommend that you do energy work, meditation every single day. And I give you the tools to do that. Go on to the channel, the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel, and go to the playlists and do any of the energy work and the meditation that I make available to you. If you want detailed instructions on exactly what to do and a spiritual discipline, and you don't want to think about it, you can just have somebody who's done it teach you how to do it. Go up here to thunderwizard.com and scroll around until you see the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. And when you subscribe, give me a second here. When you subscribe, oh, there it is. You see those little squares right above where it says Guided Interdimensional Meditation. You see the Lightning Qigong and the 90-Day. All you have to do is click on those boxes. You'll be led to all of the videos necessary. Start with the introduction. It might be a little bit out of order, but start with the introduction and then go to phase 1, and you have a morning, afternoon, and evening thing that you can do. And, when we get hit with these storms and I feel it, I spend all of my spare time doing these things. I'm doing the meditation, I'm doing the interdimensional meditation, I'm doing the Hul breath. I played the Huar breath all night last night for that reason. It's because we were getting hit with solar radiation. And that's, if you want to be able to deal with that and not only get over the discomfort that happens from the solar radiation shifting you out of your comfort zone, but if you want to go beyond into the bliss, interdimensional meditation is going to help you with that. And doing the Huar breath or the Hul breath, just doing that you'll see very quickly that energy that's making you anxious is actually when you breathe and relax into it, it's incredibly blissful. And all, your vibration goes up. So I make those available to you, of course, courses.thunderwizard.com to see all of the stuff, the Vedic astrology, the rune readings, and all of the other certification courses and teachings that I have. My books, you can go to Amazon, Kindle, or Audible and just type in my name, Michael William Denny, or just Michael Denny, and you'll see, you can go to michaelwilliamdenny.com. I'll give it to you here. It'll take you directly to all of my stuff. You can get, Amazon, Kindle, Audible, whatever. And extraterrestrials are coming to Earth, interdimensional meditation. The books are cheap, so don't give me this crap about you can't afford a $10 book. Come on. You need this information, guys. It's time to stop. By the way, if you're listening to me and you don't have things in your life because you're not willing to spend the money, money's going away real soon. So if there's something that you want, go get it. I mean that. Stop, when you go after what you want, I'm not saying go out and buy, a dime bag of meth or something. I'm talking about go get the things that you want for yourself, for your own happiness, invest in yourself. You're not willing to get that book. You're not willing to buy that video course that you want to do because you need an extra $20 or $50. You don't want to subscribe to the 90-day challenge because you want to spend that $50 on a bag of weed. That time is gone. It's time to stop worrying about that. Go get the stuff that you want. When you do that, the universe gives you more resources to get what you want. All right, so I think I'm done with all that. The way this works, again, I'm not going to answer any questions unless you are subscribed to the Warrior 90-Day Challenge. If you are subscribed and you have a question about this video and what we're talking about, I will be happy to answer it. And of course, I don't respond to just newbies coming in and just dropping their opinion. In fact, I'm probably going to delete some stuff. So let's see here. I don't see any questions here. All right. And somebody's got a lot of opinions. Good for them. But there aren't any questions. All right. So I guess we're all done for today. So that's it, guys. Again, take advantage of the things you've got here on this channel. Go to the playlists and go to thunderwizard.com. And, yeah, this is it. We're coming to the end. We'll keep our eyes open, but I think things are going to get even more intense. I strongly recommend, if you haven't already done so, go and Google CE5 protocols. That's probably, that and, the interdimensional meditation that I teach here on the channel. Whoops. No, that's not it either. The interdimensional meditation and CE5, these probably are the two most important things you can be doing right now, along with the energy work and the meditation. And I'm gonna end the broadcast for today, but I'm gonna put up again the quantum meditation. I'll leave it up here for a few minutes. You can look at it, copy it, write it down. Do that. If you haven't done any of this, do that today. The most important thing you can be doing is tapping into higher dimensional energy and waking up to who you are outside of the third dimension. When you do that, nothing can touch you. All right, that's it from me, guys. Thanks.